Good morning, I'm Wendy Burke, and this is the CBC Morning Report for Thursday, March 7th, 2022. In our top story this morning, a total of 111 new COVID-19 cases were recorded, some 53 males and 58 females, by the Besto Santos lab on Saturday. They were determined after conducting some 830 tests. The positive cases consist of 25 people under the age of 18 and 86 who are 18 years and older. The number of people in isolation facilities stands at 49, while 1,645 people are in home isolation. The number of deaths from the viral illness stands at 319. The Public Health Laboratory has carried out 591,530 tests since February 2020. And recorded 56,124, some 26,054 males and 30,070 females of COVID-19. Barbados is alive with activity as it slowly reopened following the impact of COVID-19. That was the message from the Barbados Tourism Marketing Incorporated, beamed to Canadians by the Chief Product Development Officer, Marcia Allen. She was among the panel for a virtual discussion hosted by BTY Travel Week Canada titled Future of Travel 2022. Ms. Allen updated the forum on developments in Barbados, noting the streets are busy as well as the island's beaches. She says visitors can look forward to exciting activities.
There is a matched historic Spice Down. I know a number of your Canadian audiences love the history and heritage that Barbados offers. And Spice Down actually is where the first 5 governors of South Carolina originated from. This area, in fact, the entire island is replete with history and heritage assets. And I know that the Canadian audiences love heritage. If you are a West Coast person, the West Coast is beautiful. The sea is calm, white powdery sand, almost no ripples in the ocean. And of course, all of our water sports activities are out. They're unique. They're very different. You can do things like the Animal Flora Cave.
Ms. Allen says Barbados has on offer some of the most luxurious properties and resorts.
For travelers who are looking to splurge and spoil themselves, Barbados offers some of the most luxurious properties and resorts and experiences in the Caribbean. From classic properties like the Crane and Sandals Resort, which is just having a new refurbishment, to newcomers like the O2 Beach Club and Spa.
Jamaica's Minister of Education, Favour Williams, has conceded some schools will have to violate the physical distancing rule when face-to-face classes resume today. There's been mounting concerns some schools will not have adequate space to facilitate physical distancing when the full complement of students return to face-to-face learning. But the minister said these schools will need to strictly adhere to the other COVID-19 protocols to ensure the safety of the students. She says today is a big turning point in the country's education sector.
As you know, all our students are required to be back in the face-to-face environment. We know that this is yet another transition from being in the COVID-19 pandemic when we've had to use different modalities and to have our children, some in school at one time, some at home and so on. So we're transitioning to a new phase in terms of our students being back fully into the face-to-face environment. We know that there are going to be challenges. Your students have been out for almost 2 years as they get back into the school environment. I know they'll be excited, but there might be, challenges for them, for you, for us. We seek your patience as we work through these days. We want to do the best for our students, but we need you to hold hands with us as we go through this period to get our children back to where they were before the pandemic in terms of their education, but also to move them beyond that because they would have missed quite a lot of time during the pandemic.
Guyanese who are considered obese are being told by the country's Minister of Health, Dr. Frank Anthony, to take the COVID-19 jab. He says these individuals are at high risk.
We have found in our vaccination program that although vaccines are going to be useful for many persons, the persons believe the opposite. So, for example, maybe a person who has diabetes, they think that they shouldn't get the vaccine because they're diabetic, and that's not so. In fact, because of the risk that you have, a high risk of getting COVID, then you should go and get your vaccine.
Dr. Anthony is recommending that persons check their body mass index (BMI), practice healthy habits, and consult with their local healthcare provider to see if they are at risk for obesity and associated diseases.
We have a number of guidelines that we have developed, and we have been training people at different health centers to be able to provide this type of guidance. We have printed material, we have video material, and in some instances, the team from the ministry would go out into the community, go to specific areas, and there would be demonstration of how to cook these types of meals.
Minister Anthony noted that the Food and Nutrition Unit at the ministry can work with communities and organizations to hold talks on the topic.
When Morning Report returns, we'll tell you about some Ukrainians here in Barbados. It was an emotional moment for two Ukrainians in Barbados who turned to church for solace and prayers as their country continues to face bombardments as Russia continues its invasion. The duo, identified as Elena and Romain, shared with the congregation of the Cathedral Church of St. Michael and All Angels information trickling in from their families still stuck in Ukraine and its capital.
Elena say our family is surrounded, the city is surrounded, and they cannot evacuate, so and they are sitting in a cave waiting. So we are praying, we want to pray for. And they say there are bombings all the time. So this is the situation.
Dean, the Very Reverend Dr. Jeffrey Gibson, offered prayers for the families of Elena and Romain and all those who live in places of war and terror.
Lord, you hear the cry of the oppressed, and you are attentive to their need. Show your mercy to all who live in fear of being overcome by those stronger than themselves. Be with them in the hidden places of their spirit. Help them to know your love for them in all their troubles. Deliver them from all who would do them harm, and help them to know that your might is greater than the strength of all the powers of this world. that no one can truly be lost forever, through the power of the resurrection of your Son, Jesus Christ, O Lord. Amen.
The Russian advance to the Ukrainian capital of Kiev has seen airstrikes and gunfights in nearby cities. And as attempts at ceasefires fail, residents are now uncertain of their next move.
Residential buildings on fire in Hostomel, northwest of Kiev. And nearby in the town of Irpin, dramatic scenes and heavy shelling by the Russian army. Civilians trying to help the wounded in the absence of medical workers. There is also heavy damage here at the Zhytomyr tank plant. And destruction in the cities of Korostyn and Ovruk in the Zhytomyr region in northern Ukraine, according to state media. In his latest statement, President Volodymyr Zelensky said Russian shelling has destroyed the Havrishivka-Vinnytsia International Airport. He warned Russia is preparing to bomb the historic southeastern port city of Odessa. The city has more than 1 million people, including Bulgarian and Jewish minorities.
Odessa.
They are planning to bombard Odessa. The Russians always used to come to Odessa and they felt only warmth, only sincerity in Odessa. And now bombs are coming against Odessa. Artillery, missiles. This is going to be a war crime, a historic crime.
But the Russian army is talking only about military targets. It says it has destroyed 2,203 military facilities in Ukraine during what it calls a special operation. The offensive continues to stoke popular anger in Ukraine, especially in the besieged southeastern region. There was hope thousands could escape from the besieged city of Mariupol in the southeast, but the evacuation was called off after both sides claimed ceasefire violations. Many other Ukrainians have escaped the Russian bombardment for neighboring countries. UNHCR says the number of refugees has now passed 1.5 million, making it the largest exodus in Europe since World War II. Mohammed Val, Al Jazeera.
Well, let's take a closer look at Odessa, which is the third largest city in Ukraine. It's often known as the Pearl of the Black Sea, but it's also a significant port for the wider region with strategic pipelines, oil and chemical processing facilities, as well as major transport hubs. If Russia manages to take the city, it would cut off Ukraine's access to the Black Sea. Al Jazeera's Amar Lafi has more from Odessa.
We've been hearing sirens in Odessa here where we stand. The Ukrainian army says they've downed a Russian warplane. This comes a statement made by the governor of Odessa, who said that all the air defenses have been put into action along the Black Sea coast. These statements imply that a new batch of missiles and aircraft have been received by the Ukrainian army in the city. At the same time, these statements may also explain President Zelensky's warning that Russia may strike Odessa using warplanes. Zelensky said that Odessa has been warmly welcoming Russian tourists for years, but now it's come under Russian bombardment. He also said if Russia bombards the city, it will be a historical crime and a war crime. Odessa is the heart of tourism in Ukraine. It receives millions of tourists annually, the majority of whom are Russians. It's also important to note that the center of the city has not come under attack so far. It's only the outskirts of the city that have been targeted.
The northwestern city of Zhytomyr has also been hit by heavy shelling. More than a dozen buildings, some of them residential, have been destroyed in recent days. Steph Vasson has more from Zhytomyr.
Well, this is just a very ordinary residential area in Zhytomyr, and this is how an airstrike or the impact of an airstrike looks like. A Russian airstrike was done here on Friday. A missile hit this area. This house, there was a young woman, 28 years old. She died here. We just spoke to her father. In that house over there, you see some people on the roof. 3 children got severely injured, ended up in hospital. The youngest was 3 years old. This is a pure residential area. It's not very far from an air base or military base, I have to say. The military base is like hundreds of meters that way, and it's very hard for these residents to understand what was actually the purpose of this strike. Was it really the military base, or was this the target? So There's a lot of anger here in this area because it's a third residential area that I've seen struck here in Zhytomyr since I've arrived here. There was another one over there, also in the vicinity of the military base, but not quite there. Also residential area, lots of shops destroyed, and people are here just picking through the rubble. They're still like completely in shock, lots of emotions, heartbreaking stories. People really completely don't understand why this area was hit. People have nowhere to go, they say, because this is an unsafe area. Lots of people have left, they don't know where to go, and they're just picking up the pieces, trying to find something that is still valuable that they can that they can keep. But the anger here is unbelievable. The people are really defiant. People who are still here say we're not going anywhere, and if the Russians come, we will fight them personally.
The United States Secretary of State Anthony Blinken traveled to the Eastern Europe in a public show of support for Ukraine and its people. The Ukrainian people and its foreign minister continued to plead for more support from the American government.
Україна зараз потребує, щоб Європа та світ закрив небо над Україною. Будь ласка, зробіть це негайно. Ми цього
Close the skies over Ukraine now, she says, to stop Russian bombs falling on their cities.
Please close the sky for Ukraine. Help us. We are alone.
A desperate plea from the Ukrainian people. Something that U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, on his visit to Poland, made clear will not happen. A 45-minute meeting with Ukraine's foreign minister at the border, a public show of support at his country's darkest hour.
The entire world stands with Ukraine, just as I am standing here in Ukraine with my friend, my colleague, Dmytro Kuleba, the foreign minister of Ukraine.
If they continue to provide us with necessary weapons, the price will be lower. This will save many lives in Ukraine, many houses, many children will be born, many sufferings will be avoided.
Despite the symbolic visit, direct American military help, something that could risk triggering a global conflict, stops at the Polish border. Volunteers say the anxiety, uncertainty, frustration, and sadness of refugees at the often chaotic Medica border crossing must be seen to be understood. Having skipped it on his tour, Blinken, they say, may struggle to comprehend the level of help Ukraine needs.
I mean, professing solidarity is one thing, and acting and actually doing something is another thing. I can say a lot of words too, but it doesn't mean anything if I don't do anything with my hands. I am not present here. I don't see it with my eyes.
Millions more could soon